So we say this just to, you know, it's the end of gray. I think what's going to happen with mixed media, particularly because of Apple, it's going to be like adding sound to movies. It's going to be like adding color to television. It's going to be like from DOS to Windows. You're going to see, I think, text lit up. Why? Because suddenly we have the power of the internet to do things. Not ever destroying the narrative form of the story. That's not our intention. It's just that I think things are going to happen. The kind of third piece to this, though, at the backbone is the text and the story that the author's created. In some case, the author is created with the filmmaker, and that's the one thing that we're most excited about, when the author comes together with the filmmaker at the onset to create a new form. But so you have to have the text. We think you have to have the film, but then we think rendering this, and part of that is the device market. And I would argue that we've really had nothing to date that has in any way emulated the power and the success of the book as a piece of technology. The book is still just really, really works better than anything I think we've begun to produce or manufacture a physical device that emulates that experience. I'm reading what am I reading? The Privileges, you know, and I have that book. I'm carrying that around with me, and I have all the devices, and you know, what am I doing with that book? Well, just for now, for me, I felt more comfortable to get on the plane yesterday and bring the physical book. So that tells me it's not really working. In the early 80s, I remember I was living in San Francisco, and I was a newspaper writer, and I was always been into technology. I was kind of a nerd, read Popular Mechanics as a kid, and I bought the first PC, the IBM PC. And a big debate then was like the device market now, where you had to decide between all of these devices and which would work. And this is the day when you had a disk drive and a software drive, and you had to put the software in and drag up the data file. And I remember going to Herb Caen, a famous columnist for the San Francisco Examiner, and saying to Herb that, have you seen this computer? And he was the guy that used to like to really, in his writing, talk about his typewriter and how fond he was of the typewriter and how much it meant to him. And the way he talked about his typewriter was very similar to how people talk about their books. As a creator, the typewriter was your tool. You didn't carry it around, but you kept it safe, and you kind of fondled it, really, like we do our devices now. And I said, I think this may be not quite there, but it does some things that I want to show you. And I could wrap a sentence, you know, instead of the old carriage exchange. And Herb is intrigued, and he died typing, by the way, and some poor editor had to, you know, convert it and all that stuff. But the point was that it wasn't there yet. It didn't compete with the utility, but also this sense of affection that those of us that typed as writers actually held on to. And I think eventually, boom, it happened. It was like, who has a typewriter? No one has a typewriter. It's not functional. It has none of the capacity. So I think in the device world, it's my view that we really have not come up with something that we can hold on to and have that sense, whatever those, you know, I'm sure you all know better than I, what all those sensations are. But we will. And when that happens, that's kind of the third big thing that's going to happen. And you notice, look at the people holding on to their Macs. You know, they hold on to them differently than people do with PCs. People with PCs have this piece of utility, and people with Macs, there's something, you know, kind of cool. And you know, you look at the Mac users over the years and Apple users, there's a certain attachment to their devices. This will happen in the ebook world, and whether Apple's the game changer we think it could be, it's the first generation of something that's pretty profound. Do we need to take a break? I know Susan.
Got another 5 minutes.
Okay, good. So the way this works, he's filming this, they're uploading it to YouTube, and they can only do segments of 10 minutes. So that's why. And by the way, another thing this brings up is distribution. Suddenly, Apple is now a bookseller. Yesterday, I think it was about 4-to-1 for us, for Anne Rice, iPhones to browser. And that means Anne Rice, a piece of work of hers, a magazine piece from the early 80s that, you know, was a gem sitting out there that we took out, we lit up with video, linked it, did all kinds of other things. We put it in the Apple Store, and we sold lots. We're 17 out of 25,000 paid ebooks. People loved it. They're giving us great feedback. Found a couple spelling errors. I can't believe we did that. But anyway, we'll fix that, because the beauty of digital media is you can fix it overnight and resubmit it. And Apple's been very good about improving our stuff really quick. But the big thing here, 2 years ago, whoever thought Apple would be a bookstore? They are. They are now a bookstore, at least. And imagine Verizon's 150 million users. When the Droid begins to really amp up the production of applications, and suddenly those 150 million cell phone users who are going to become a new audience for books and Vooks. And so this is not just about rendering, this is about distribution. Anyone can sell books suddenly. My argument would be more text will be read, more stories will be told, better and more interesting stories will be told, and more people are going to be introduced to this media. I use Shakespeare as an example. I'm not sure that's going to take people to read Shakespeare, but they're going to be introduced to Shakespeare in an entirely new, interesting, entertaining, contemporary way with the authentic style of video that particularly young people are familiar with, and they're fun. And if you play them a couple times, just like reading, at least for me, I got to read a song like 100 times before I understand what it means, people might actually get it, which would be wonderful. So think of this as distribution and as a new form of content. Now, some of the things when we talk to publishers particularly is go, oh, is it going to make money right now? Is it going to sell right this second? And that's all about fighting innovation. I mean, it's just that instinct to fear. When we're in fear, we object. When we're in fear, we're devil's advocates. And when we're in fear, we bring up all the objections. And the reality is, how we think about it in the technology world, when you invent something entirely new, you hope it takes off instantly. And for us, it did in so many ways. But this is kind of how we think about it. There's the discovery phase, which is people testing it, trying it, writing about it. And fortunately now in the digital age, people Twitter about it, they comment about it, they tell us what they don't like. We can, in the digital world, we can ask them, but we can also watch them without invading their privacy. Like, how long are you engaged with this piece of media? In the book world, when they buy a book from this house, we don't really know what they do we? But in the browser, for example, we actually know user behavior. You know, how many videos are they watching? How long do they stay on? And some insight, it's tens of minutes. In the internet world, that is really a long time. In the book world, I don't know, do you know? I'd be curious. Do we know how many books aren't read? Does anyone know that statistic? Whatever that number is, that's 0. And then there are books that are read completely, and then there are books where I certainly do a lot of it. I read 3 chapters, particularly the pop sociology books, because you don't need to read it all. Just read 1 chapter and you got it. But the point here is we don't know, but in the digital world we do know. So we know what people are doing, and it's interesting. So that's part of the discovery phase. What are they buying? What are they saying? What are they liking? How much time are they spending on it? And what matters?